Today's voiceover talent is more than just a pretty voice. Today's voiceover talent has to be a boss, a VO boss. Set yourself up with business owner strategies and success with your host, Anne Ganguzza, along with some of the strongest voices in our industry. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss.
Welcome, everybody, to the B.O.S.S podcast. I'm your host, Anne Ganguzza, along with my lovely co-host, Gabby Nistico. Hey, Gabby.
Hello.
Today, our special guest is someone who has just, I think, taken the VO world by storm, and he is nothing short of a VO boss. I'd like to welcome all the way from Luxembourg, the one and only J. Michael Collins. J. Michael Collins, yay! Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk like Antonio Banderas for the entire podcast.
Oh,
good evening.
All right.
There you go.
Oh, my goodness.
Hi, everybody.
This is already the best interview ever.
I know, right? I like it.
Can I say Gabby over and over? Gabby. Hello.
Gabby. Gabby.
Oh, my God, I feel like I'm with my relatives in Italy. This is fabulous.
International man, J. Michael Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's so nice to have you here. And you did mention to me that it is it's like 11:30 at night over there.
10:30, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Okay, 10:30. Well, you've probably had quite a day. I track you on the internet. Gabby and I see you just working it like a boss lately, and we're here today to talk to you about some of the methods to your madness. Let our listeners know a little bit about how you got involved and started in voiceover and what it's taken to build up your business over the years.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be on with two serious VO bosses, with yourself and Gabby, and good friends, and really nice to be here and talking to everybody. You know, by the way, I've got to circle back to the idea of you tracking me on the internet. I think there are laws that protect me from that these days, but we'll address that going forward. But in terms of me, I'm just a guy, and really I was just a guy in this business for the first half of my career. Started in radio way back in the day. A lot of people have heard this story before. Started in radio, that turned into doing work for station sponsors, and then wound up getting my first agent when I was in my early 20s. And then I just kind of sat on this little VO career and built it slowly but surely for about 7 or 8 years, and didn't do a whole lot with it. I was doing all right. I was making decent money, but I wasn't a fortune. I was playing a lot of golf. And I thought that that was all there was to this. And then about, probably around about 10 years ago now, I discovered, what we now kind of know as the do-it-yourself world of voiceover. And wasn't just going into studios or casting directors' offices to do auditions anymore and then just, pulling up to the studio whenever I booked. I was actually starting to find my own work, and whether that was through online casting or self-marketing or marketing directly to production companies and ad agencies, all of a sudden I realized that, hey, if I actually put a few more hours into this, like, 80 a week.
I hear that.
Eventually it would be more than just, hey, a pretty good living, and it could become something quite special. And, more. It's funny because the more you achieve in this business, it seems like the more you wind up working because things snowball. And we were talking before we started the broadcast here about how I was in Barcelona for the VO retreat that I did a couple of weeks ago, and as AJ McKay will tell you, all of a sudden I came to him in a panic because I needed him to engineer a session for me because I had a client call in with 47 regional spots, and they're like, we need them now. Can you go get in the booth and do a 3-hour Source Connect
always
session?
The way, right?
And of course we had an internet that was working on Spanish time over there. So I was like, what do I do? and it's just it's one thing begets another, and before you know it, it's nonstop. But it's a wonderful thing, and I think a takeaway for anybody who's out there who's kind of just getting started or just plodding along is you really do get out of this business exactly what you put in. And if I have one regret in my career, it's that I didn't learn that earlier.
You are just one of the nicest, humblest guys. You and your beautiful wife, you guys, and now your new baby, because he's so freaking cute. I just want to
He's so happy.
I know he is so happy.
Tom is so
and
happy.
you've always just been this amazingly approachable, happy-go-lucky guy. I mean, I just feel like the whole industry kind of, woke up and went, oh my God, he's awesome. And it was. It seems like it was like right about
There's no
10 years
accounting
ago
for taste,
that, oh, stop that. Oh my gosh.
There's something to be
I don't want to
said.
hear it.
There's something to be said for happy people. Really. I mean, and I've always said that. Like, really, I think it just spreads joy and it makes people want to work with you. And I think that might be a good portion of why you're so successful is because you are so approachable, like Gabby was saying, and just, easy to work with and just fun to be around. And that's really something. And as we were talking before the broadcast, I mean, congrats on such a wonderful VO retreat there in Spain. And I think that this is probably, I mean, unless you're going to tell me differently, something that you're going to do again in the future.
Yeah, we've got it for twice a year, and the next one's going to be in late April, and we'll be announcing details in November. But I mean, I think the happy thing. I mean, how could you not be?
Yeah.
We look what we get to do for a living, and I mean, even back when I wasn't doing what I do now and was just kind of plugging along. Well, I was playing a lot of golf. It's not a bad life. It beats digging ditches, right? I mean, how can you not be happy getting to wake up and do this every day? And on top of that, getting to be a part of a community of people who just, the love in this industry it's amazing. I've never seen any other industry that has this. There's, there are a few people with egos, and people get grumpy from time to time, but at the end of the day, people got each other's backs, and we support each other, and there's not this gnawing sense of competition that we want to just, stab each other in the back and keep all the work to ourselves, and I mean, even in the demo production world. I mean, I talk about how talk about Anne's demos and what'd you get, like 9 Voice Arts Awards nominations this year?
Thank you.
We're not competitors, and I think that goes to voice talent and whatever else we do in this business. I think if you approach it from a sense of abundance and not a sense of scarcity, that it works well for everyone.
That's a great sentiment.
It's true. Tell us a little bit about your processes. You have some really unique perspectives, I think, on the industry itself, the way you approach work, and also your coaching. And I'd love to give our audience some insight into that and kind of like a sneak peek.
I do look at it as a business first. I'm not, the person who would have been happy waiting tables for 10 years so I could make it in voiceover. It's a business to me first and foremost. I wake up every day thinking about how I can monetize my time as a voice actor and how I can book the most work and the most lucrative work. And, over the years, one of the things that's been very effective for me is that I have, anytime a client comes back to me, I open a file for them the first time they come, of course, but the second time they return, when they come back to me with a job for the first time, I put a second file in their sheet, and that file is a plan to raise rates on that client over time. And I'm glad this mostly goes out to people in voiceover and not the buyers. But what I do though is based upon the type of work it is, my perception of their threshold for pain, and just kind of a global perspective of who I think this client is, and then what I think is reasonable. And the starting point has something to do with that. If they're paying me an amazing rate to begin with, it may be a few years before I raise rates on them. But in fact, I just did it a week and a half ago. Every October 1st, I send out a mail to each of the clients that I've targeted to raise rates on the following year that says something to the effect of, thank you for your continuing business. Due to increased demand and limited availability, the rates for the projects we work on are going up by X next year as of January 1st. Typically, it's about 10%. And I lose 25% of my regular clients every year. Doesn't sound like a very smart strategy, does it? But the 75% who stay and are now paying me a higher rate are now paying me as much, if not a little bit more, than the 100% that I had before were, freeing my time up to go out and find new ones at higher rates. I've been doing that for 20 years. In 20 years, the only year that I've had that my income declined was 2013 after the bottom dropped out of the stock market. So you've got to approach this as a business. You've got to have a plan. You've got to think strategically about how you work, and wherever you work, whether that's in the agency game or the pay-to-play game or a combination of them, or you're doing your own marketing, have a plan for increasing your income year on year to meet the goals that you want to meet.
What a fantastic strategy that is. And that is actually very similar to a previous episode that Gabby and I were talking about, is that really the power to say no. And I was just going to ask the next question was, where do you find the time? Because you're doing an awful lot of things. You're working, you're also coaching and you're producing demos. And so what other time-saving, efficient strategies do you have that help you to get through the day? Because every time I turn around, you're producing another demo, or you've got another client. So, and that's great. So, give us some of your secrets.
Well, I mean, first, I work like an animal. I really do, and I think that's the biggest secret is that, because I'm in Luxembourg, I have a little bit of an advantage in that the East Coast's day doesn't start until about 3 o'clock my time, which means I've got the whole morning and early afternoon to take care of things that are on my plate, and then I get into actual sessions. Now, of course, the downside to that is that I do work until about 11 o'clock every night. I'm honestly working from about the time that I wake up until the time that I go to bed, with a few small breaks in between to see Tom or to see Anna or to occasionally eat. But I'm working, 16-hour days. 4 days a week, and then a little bit on Fridays. So I'm pulling 70 hours a week, pretty solid. So that's number one. You get out what you put in. Have a process, and have a process and stick with it. Be organized. What I do the same thing every single day. When I wake up, once I've done my morning routine and I'm dressed, and by the way, I actually put on slacks and a dress shirt and a belt and, nice shoes. Of course, you guys know I do that pretty much everywhere, but I do it in my studio every morning, even though I could be sitting around in a robe, because I want to feel like I'm at work. And it gets me in the right headspace. And so, first thing I do once I'm into the studio is I go through emails. And that's often a fairly big stack. But I clear my email inbox in the morning. That's sort of my immediate action list, is what's still alive in my email inbox and hasn't gone on to a secondary to-do list. I will go through the stuff that actually requires a reply. I'll reply to it. Then what I'm usually left with at that point are client projects and auditions. And so the first thing I do is all of the client work that I record on my own that I have that's lined up from the previous day, and that's usually a good 2 hours of work in the morning that, mix of commercials and some narration. If it's an e-learning day, that can be a bit more, but I'll knock that out 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours, and then that will leave me with auditions. And at that point, it's in my day, it's probably about 1 o'clock, which means it's about 7 o'clock on the East Coast. So then I'll do my agency auditions first, followed by production company auditions or ad agency auditions that have come in, or clients, ongoing clients who may want me to audition as opposed to just sending me a job. And then time permitting, I'll get on to Voice 123 in Bidalgo and start looking at anything over 1,000, and time permitting, then I'll look at anything over 500, and time permitting, I'll look at anything over 300. By the time that I'm done doing that, I don't always finish all of those by the time I get into sessions, but then at 3 o'clock my sessions begin, and I'm pretty much on sessions from 3 until the time I go to bed. And then lather, rinse, repeat.
Wow.
Oof. I'm tired.
I know.
I'm tired
It's exhausting just listening to that.
I may stroke out at some point, but it's fun right now.
Don't say that. Oh, God. No.
I've got my statins right here, so we're good. But
what are some things that you put into practice for your business in dealing with, international or different clients from different countries?
Look, it's a balancing act, because you have to balance protecting your own interests without giving offense or potentially losing a client, and understanding risk reward. So do the best you can to do your due diligence and verify who a client is, and if you're really comfortable with them, then maybe be a little bit more liberal, but protect your interests at the same time. And I think the thing that you'll find that's interesting is clients, different cultures have different expectations and have different ways of doing business. I always joke, I've got one client in India for e-learning, and if you've ever been approached by one of these Indian e-learning companies, they want you to do it for 2 cents an hour,
Right.
and the sheep, and the sheep is not always included, but
Sheep not
in
included.
any case, that's right, here's mutton. Enjoy, how would you like to be paid? Mutton. But so this is one client who I got them up to kind of what I would consider my absolute bare minimum reasonable Western level for e-learning. And to get them there, we actually got to the point where I was walking down the street in our sleepy little town here having a phone conversation, cursing this person's mother in words that I certainly can't say on the V.O.S.S podcast. And he was saying equally colorful ones about my mother. And at the end of the day, we're still doing business, and I don't think he would have respected me if I had been any less aggressive in my negotiating style. So you kind of have to understand the culture of who you're dealing with a little bit. And I love my German clients and my French clients because there's no BS. Now, there's not a lot of joking and fun, or play either. It's just business, but boy, you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid on time, and it's going to be a professional encounter. And if they need anything changed, they're going to proactively offer to pay you for it. So
Nice.
it's every culture is a little bit different.
Well, I think it's super important that you mention this to get to know your client and how to deal with them most effectively. And I love that you can be a little bit tough with your negotiations. I think that more people need to feel that way, and that it's okay to negotiate the way you need to negotiate, because if they're not willing to I guess come to your terms, then it's okay sometimes to just say, okay, well, I'm going to move on. And I think that that's healthy for your business.
I think one of the things that people are just so lost with in voiceover is this idea that we have to desperately chase work. The myth of the market being oversaturated with talent, it is a myth. Now, if you're in LA and you're competing for those precious union roster spots, or if you're in New York and you're doing the same thing, there is some truth to the idea that there is more quality talent out there than there are spots available on the very best rosters. That is true. But in the great 99% of the voiceover world in the middle, there is far more work out there than there is quality talent to do it. And we have, go post a job on Voice 123. 80% of the auditions are not going to be viable, okay? You're only competing against 15 or 20 people, even on an online casting site, most of the time. So you are not swamped by competition if you're good. If you know how to do your audio, if you know how to have a studio that's well treated, if you understand the tech side of the business, and you can nail your reads on a consistent basis, you will not go hungry, and you do not have to compromise on your rates. So stand up for yourself. Get what you're worth. Don't be a jerk, okay? But stand up for yourself and your value, and you'll be amazed how much clients respect that and how clients respond to the lure of exclusivity and quality just as much as they do to the momentary thrill of a cheap price.
Well said.
And I think of anyone in the voiceover industry that I can think of, you are absolutely a shining example of someone who knows his worth, who knows how he wants to live, and sets a very high standard. And I think that that's excellent. How can people follow you, learn more about you, inquire about your coaching, all the good stuff?
Well, you're more than welcome to get a hold of me. Email's the best way, jmichael@jmcvoiceover.com. You can check out my website, which is jmcvoiceover.com. I've got coaching and demo pages up there. You can listen to a lot of the samples of the demos we've produced. And, I don't, I typically don't keep more than 5 full-time coaching students on at any given one time. So, there can be a little bit of a wait to get in for an extended coaching program. Demos, we're racking them and stacking them right now and doing great work, so feel free to reach out. And I'd love to hear from you, though, regardless of whether you're new, whether you're established, whatever your interests may be. I'm always happy to talk, and if I'm not the right person for you, I'm happy to give you some guidance as to who is.
Well, thank you so much, J. Michael. It has been just a pleasure talking with you, and I'm actually going to see you in a couple of weeks, so I'm really happy about that. So thanks so much for staying up late and talking with us. And I'd like to give a big thanks to our sponsor, IPDTL, for our quality connection and recording across the continent. So you can also find out more at ipdtl.com.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and two people that I have nothing but the very highest respect for, and Gabby and yourself.
Oh,
thank you.
Same.
Back right at you. Yep.
Hugs.
I saw Gabby's little face pop in at VO Atlanta, and she was just like, "Hi, J. Michael," and I was like, "Hi, Gabby." She's like, "What you doing?" "I'm going to a session." "What are you doing?" "I'm going to a session." "Okay, hope we can catch up." And a year later,
bye.
here we are. So
Yeah.
I was very incognito last year. Everybody said that about me.
yeah,
I
we
do that
didn't get the
sometimes. It's
usual
okay.
debauchery of the in-suite party.
I
shed a
know.
tear over
I was having my own debauchery in the whiskey bar. It was a long. It was a whole education in bourbons.
debauchery.
It was
Wait a minute,
delightful.
VO people don't drink. What are you
No,
talking
not at
about?
all.
I didn't
They're
have
respectable.
Maker's Mark
Yes.
the last night in the villa. I promise, really.
I promise. I promise. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. Have and until we meet again, have a kick butt week. Stay focused and rock your business.
Rock your business like,
Like
a
a
boss.
boss.
Bye, everybody. It
A
was a
VO Boss. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Or you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, the website, VOBoss.com, and of course, VO Boss University.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Join us next week for another edition of V.O.S.S. with your hosts, Anne Ganguzza and Gabby Nisterko. All rights reserved. Anne Ganguzza voice talent in association with 3 Moon Media. Redistribution with permission. Coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.